Sci-Hub.
So I think there's something to love about the quirky Alcatel A5 LED. And okay, it's not the fastest smartphone on the market, and it really will struggle to keep up with any kind of budget handsets like the Motorola Moto G5 for example, but it's different and we like different. So the Alcatel A5 LED was originally going to be shipped as just a standard black mobile phone. The LED panel on the back was an afterthought to try and separate it from the competition, to try and jazz it up a little bit to separate its design. And it's a good job they did, because I don't think this phone would really hold up in any other way. As soon as I opened the box, I noticed that the black rear of the phone was actually already pre-installed, so I quickly whipped that off and stuck the LED one on there instead. So the LEDs themselves are diffused between the back of the phone and this very sort of subtle mesh back. And to be honest with you, I think it actually looks quite tasteful. Now, the LEDs are always going to be there, they're always going to be bright and shining in your face, but the way they've actually done it here looks quite stylish. Now, the LEDs are going to fire off every time you receive a phone call, receive a notification, or every time you play music. Now, the patterns that they create can be set by you, and these can be in the style of meteors, a rain shower, fire, or fireworks for example, and they can be customized to your liking, including the color as well. You can even set the LEDs to a rhythmic pattern, so every time you play music, they will fire in line with the beat, literally like a wedding DJ disco. Now in that sense it makes the whole phone feel a little bit gimmicky, but I think it's quite a nice gimmicky. It's a gimmicky that we certainly like here. Now I think it's such a shame that the specification of this phone isn't actually very good, because I think with the wild back, if the specification was a little bit higher, it would have been a wonderful phone to use. Now the phone is particularly bulky, especially when you've got the LED rear on there, but it doesn't really make a huge difference between that and the standard back. Now the whole phone is made from plastic, which makes it feel like a very cheap handset to hold in your hands. The only saving grace is actually the glass panel on the front for the screen. Now the phone isn't extremely expensive either, and it only comes in at £100 from various retailers online that we found, so you're definitely getting a budget handset for the cost. So the screen itself actually comes in at only 720p, which is a little disappointing seeing as there are other handsets on the market hitting a full HD resolution and even now 4K. Now that being said, I never really struggled to use the phone. Reading small text on a web browser for example was still pretty sharp, and I never really saw myself zooming in that far on the web page to pick out what I wanted to read. Now the biggest downfall with the screen is its viewing angle. You have to look at it dead on to get the full bright display. If you find yourself looking slightly to the left or to the right or even above or below it, then you will start to notice that there is a decrease in brightness and even contrast as well. So the phone itself is rocking Android 6.0, which is a whole version older than Android's latest Nugget software. There have been some design changes that Alcatel have implemented with their version of Android 6.0, but these haven't strayed too far away from stock Android. Now there are custom themes that you can install onto the phone to improve the experience, but there is also something called Color Catcher, which is way more fun to use. Now what that really means is that you use the phone's camera to take a picture of a scene, so say for example in your garden. You can then extract single colours from that scene and turn it into a theme, so you've got greens, oranges from the leaves, you've got multicoloured flowers that you can use, and then it changes the whole look of the actual phone itself. Now I think one of the biggest letdowns is the phone specification. Inside you'll find a MediaTek 1.3 octa-core processor paired with 2GB of RAM. There's also a Mali T720 graphics processor inside. Now the specification on paper isn't bad at all, to be honest with you. It's actually pretty good, and it actually only really falls behind something like the Moto G5. Now Now the phone on paper should be good, but it's just not. It feels very sluggish when you're trying to get through apps and if you're multitasking for example, and I even found that it started lagging behind when I was typing out text messages, which I thought was a little bit of a pain. I had to wait for the text to catch up with my keyboard typing speed. And because of this, we thought we'd run it through a Geekbench 4 benchmark, and it scored 2603 on a multi-core processor, which we found strange because that was just a little bit behind a Moto G5 score. I don't really know why this phone suffers so much. Playing games was absolutely fine because I think it was running one app, but as soon as you start throwing multiple apps at the handset, or you're switching between different apps and you're typing really fast, it just felt really slow and sluggish, and it stuttered and hung there for a little while when it really shouldn't. And I think if this phone was able to handle some kind of consistent performance, it would score a lot higher in especially our scores, and especially on the market as well. And it would really, with the quirky back, be one of the better handsets to go for at this kind of price. There's a car outside, so I have to wait. And please don't get me started on the battery life. It is bad. Now, I really struggled to get a day's use out of it, and I think it's probably down to the LED back panel. Now, if, for example, you're using it on your way to work, you're listening to music, checking your social media, you're at work, you use it at lunch, you're really going to struggle to hit that 5 PM mark when it's home time without having to recharge the phone at least once during the day. Now, this can improve if you use the standard back, but only just. You're still going to really be pressured to hit that full day use out of this phone. So one redeeming factor is the camera, and after the slating I've just given this phone, it's really not as bad as you might expect. And the only problem with it is that it just is slow. I mean, it's slow to take a picture, it's slow to check that picture after you've taken it, and the worst thing is if you try and put on any kind of picture effects like HDR, I wouldn't really bother because you'd probably miss the shot before the HDR even activates anyway. It's that slow. And again, I don't know why, because the performance of this phone and the specification of this phone on paper really shouldn't be that slow. And saying that, once you do actually take a photo, the quality isn't actually that bad. Now, it's not going to be as sharp or as clear as something like a photo from a Sony XA1, but it's still passable and can look pretty sharp on the mobile phone screen. Now, the actual layout is relatively clean, and it's actually taken inspiration, I believe, from an iPhone, where you've got all the options across the bottom in the little black box, like photo, video, panorama, and effects. Now, the Alcatel A5 LED is a fun mobile phone, and it's definitely one that can give you, pretty much with the color capture, unlimited ways to customize the actual Android experience and even the LED colors on the back. Now, the only problem is that it is let down by its really slow performance, which I'm a little bit let down by, to be honest with you, because I wanted this phone to be one of the best budget handsets you can buy, because I just love the customization and I love the LED light show on the back. I'm having trouble recommending this phone over something like the Moto G5, which I know is a pretty decent phone for a budget handset. Now, the actual customization is a lot different to pretty much every other phone on the market, and the LED back is very unique to the actual Alcatel handset here. And again, the only other letdown to this phone is its extremely bad battery life, which I don't know how you'd be able to get around unless you can replace with a compatible Alcatel A5 battery. Now, you can change the LED handset, you can change the LED rear to the phone if you want, but it really just takes it away from the uniqueness of this handset. So I suppose I'm really sitting here hoping that Alcatel can really come up with some way of optimizing the software that's on the insides of the phone with some kind of software update, because if they can do that, then yeah, absolutely, I would recommend this phone hands down for a budget handset. But until then, there are better models out there for the kind of price that you'll be spending on this. Thank you very much for checking out our review of the Alcatel A5 LED Mobile. If you enjoyed the review, then hit that like button. Please do subscribe to keep up with all of our latest technology and gaming videos, and also leave us a comment below letting us know what you think of the Alcatel A5 LED and whether you would buy something like this for the LED factor on the rear, or whether you would avoid the budget handset altogether and go for something like the Moto G5 or the Sony XA1. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next review.